6 months ago, she called me boring. Said I lacked ambition, lacked passion, and worst of all, lacked presence. I didn't fight back. I let her go. Now I'm dating someone she follows online. The first time she saw us together, she choked on her own smile, and her mother stopped calling me a mistake. When we first got together, she used to say I was the calm in her chaos. That's how she described me to her friends. I thought it was a compliment. We met at a mutual friend's housewarming, the kind of curated chaos where everyone's pretending not to try too hard. She wore vintage leather boots and a tiny silver knife on a chain around her neck. I wore a navy button-down I'd ironed 3 times because it kept creasing on the sleeves. She liked that I listened, that I wasn't like the scattered creatives she usually dated, that I remembered how she took her coffee, that I was grounding. She was the whirlwind type, fast-talking, late arriving, always spinning 10 ideas at once. I didn't try to catch up. I just stayed steady. She called it peaceful. At first, in the early months, things felt cinematic. Long walks at midnight, spontaneous road trips, days where we did nothing but drink wine and brainstorm startup names she'd never register. I thought we were building something. But somewhere around month 4, the vibe shifted. She started making little comments. You're too comfortable with routine. Do you ever feel like your life's already written? You're sweet, but don't you want to be more? At first, I brushed it off. Everyone has their phases. Maybe she was just stressed. Her creative projects weren't landing, and a few gigs fell through. I figured she needed space, so I gave her some. But space turned into silence, and silence turned into staged distance. She'd go out without telling me, stay out late, and say she forgot to text. She started calling me stable like it was a flaw. What really stung, though, wasn't the critiques, it was how she performed them. She'd talk about me like I wasn't in the room. At group dinners, she'd joke that I worked with spreadsheets, when I literally don't. She once told a table of strangers that I was a beautiful beige, right after I helped her fund her art exhibit. The night it broke, it wasn't even a fight. It was brunch. Her sister was in town. We were all having mimosas. And out of nowhere, she sighed and said, I think I've outgrown this dynamic. I need someone who moves. Then she looked right at me, like I was the this in question. Her sister nodded. I paid the check. I remember walking home thinking, maybe they're right. Maybe I am boring. I didn't call her. I didn't beg. I just stopped. Little did I know that silence would become my starting point. Because the woman I'd meet 3 months later, she wouldn't just light up a room. She'd burn the whole script and write a better one. I didn't jump back into dating right away. For weeks after the brunch breakup, I just floated. Woke up, worked, scrolled, slept. Ate out of the same Tupperware 3 days in a row. My apartment was quiet in that kind of way that doesn't feel peaceful, just empty. I muted her on everything. Not out of bitterness, just survival. Even her profile pictures made me feel like I'd failed a test I didn't know I was taking. The worst part wasn't being alone. It was wondering if she had been right about me. One night, around 2 a.m., I found myself deep in a comment thread under a podcast clip. Some guy had asked why women always say they want a stable man, and then leave the moment they get one. The replies were a mess. But one stuck with me. It said, because they don't want stability, they want movement. You can be still and alive. The trick is, don't dim. Just learn how to glow in silence. I don't know why that hit me. Maybe because I'd been mistaking silence for shrinking. So I started making noise. Quietly. I went back to old habits I'd dropped in the relationship. Sketching, playing guitar, running by the river at night. I stopped asking who I needed to be. I started asking who I already was. And that's when she found me. Not my ex, her. I was sketching alone at a local open studio event. Just something casual. You pay $10, grab a stool, and draw a live model for an hour. No pressure. No networking. Just you and the page. She sat next to me. Late, messy hair, denim jacket covered in paint splatters like she didn't even notice. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. We drew in silence for 20 minutes. Then she leaned over, pointed at my paper, and said, You draw like someone who listens too much and speaks too little. I smiled. She wasn't wrong. We started talking. About art. About noise. About showing up even when nobody claps. She told me her name. I blinked. I had seen her before. Online. She had a modest but dedicated following. Mostly creatives and people in the art world. She made these beautiful video essays about solitude and sound. About finding power in restraint. And my ex used to binge watch her stuff. I remember the night vividly. My ex and I had just had one of those half-arguments where nothing gets resolved. She turned on a video called The Stillness Between Fireworks, watched it 3 times, and said, "God, I wish I could think like her." And now here she was, sitting beside me, laughing at my stupid pencil smudges, asking if I wanted to grab coffee after the session. I didn't know it then, but that moment was the start of a shift, not just in my love life, but in how I saw myself. Because for the first time in a long while, someone looked at me and didn't see beige. She saw presence. But that was just the beginning of my nightmare. Our first few weeks were quiet in the best way. No games, no status updates, just long walks, deep conversations, and shared silence that didn't feel awkward, it felt earned. Her name was Riley. She painted like it was survival. Didn't care if it sold. Said, art that's desperate to be bought is already compromised. She didn't ask for validation, she offered it. We weren't official yet, but people noticed. And by people, I mean her. It started small. Riley tagged me in a story, just our coffee side by side on a park bench. Nothing dramatic. Within an hour, I got a DM from a friend I hadn't spoken to in months. Isn't that her favorite content creator? Elmio skull that's got a sting. I brushed it off. Coincidence. Riley had a following. It wasn't a secret. Just ironic. But then I saw my ex's story. Not a reaction. Not a call-out. A quote post. Some people move on by becoming someone else's mirror. I'd rather stay original. The caption was worse. No shade. Just facts. Her sister liked it within seconds. I felt my stomach twist, not because it hurt, but because it was familiar. This was what she did, perform pain like a monologue. Make you look guilty for healing without her. I didn't respond. Neither did Riley. We kept seeing each other. More walks. More sketches. More presents. But the digital fog thickened. Riley started getting vague comments under her posts. Does he know he's just your prop? Funny how he fits your aesthetic so well. Be careful, sis. He's got ex-boyfriend energy. One night, Riley asked, do you think someone's watching us? I paused too long. She noticed. So I told her the truth. That I used to date someone who admired her. That it didn't end well. That I thought maybe she'd seen us and didn't like the view. Riley didn't flinch. She just nodded, then said, so we're dealing with a ghost who thinks she owns you. Got it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying things I'd ignored back then. The way my ex would joke about controlling narratives. How she once said, perception is reality. You just have to be the first to speak. I checked her account again. She'd posted a video. Black and white filter. Melancholic piano. A soft monologue about losing yourself in someone who reflects nothing. She never said my name. Never showed my face. But the comments knew. This hit so hard. I was with someone like that. She's better off alone. Some men just drain the color out of you. The beige metaphor is too real. And there, buried between emojis and heart gifs, was a single comment from her mother. I told you he wasn't ready for your light. I should have closed the app. But I didn't. I went into the commenter's profile. That's when I saw it. A photo from last week. Taken from across the park. Me and Riley. Mid-conversation. My hand brushing her arm. Captioned, she always wanted to be her. I stared at the photo for a long time. It wasn't just the picture. It was the angle. Slightly elevated, framed through leaves. Whoever took it was standing behind the stone fence near the south path of the park. I'd passed that spot a dozen times. Never thought to look up. My first instinct was denial. People post weird things online all the time. Maybe it was a fan of Riley's. Maybe it was just some creep. But I made the mistake of checking the account again. Only 10 posts. All uploaded within the last 6 weeks. All moody, cryptic, aesthetic-driven. Half of them referenced concepts Riley had used in her art essays, twisted into passive-aggressive captions. When you're so obsessed with being still, you forget how to move. Not all quiet people are deep. Some are just empty. The bio stopped me cold. She was art. He was a blank wall. I scrolled down, and there it was. A post from 2 weeks ago. A screenshot of a Riley video. One where she mentioned a childhood memory involving wildflowers and her father. The caption read, funny how stories feel less sacred when they become flirty metaphors for new boys. I felt sick. My head buzzed like I'd stuck my brain into a socket. It wasn't just shade. It wasn't just vague. It was intentional. Calculated. Someone wasn't just watching. Someone was curating our moments into a narrative. And I knew exactly who that someone was. I called Riley. Her voice was calm, which somehow made it worse. I know, she said. I've seen the page too. She tagged me once, then deleted it. I sat down. You're not mad? I asked. She let out a breath. I'm not surprised. That silence between us stretched. Finally, she added, do you want me to respond to her? I shook my head, even though she couldn't see it. No, that's exactly what she wants. We hung up, and for the first time in years, I felt violated. Like someone had crawled inside my timeline and started rearranging my life. I opened my laptop, logged into an old shared Google Drive we once used for trip planning. I'd forgotten about it. Maybe she had too. The last folder had a date for its title. I clicked. Inside was a Word doc called Versions of Me. It was something she used to say, that everyone had different versions depending on who they were around. At the time, I thought it was poetic. I opened the file. It was a diary, but not of her feelings, of mine. Snippets of things I'd said, broken down like case studies. He talks about routine like it's religion. I think it comforts him, but it makes me itch. He doesn't know how to interrupt, even when I need him to. I tried to provoke him during brunch, but he just paid the check. That's not romantic. That's cowardice. I sat there, frozen. Not because she'd written those things, but because I recognized the last line. It was word for word in her newest video. She wasn't reacting to my relationship with Riley. She was rehearsing it. I thought about deleting the file, just dragging it into the trash and pretending I never saw it. But I didn't. Instead, I printed it. I needed to see it. The margins, the structure, the way she'd broken down my personality like a psychology case study. Each paragraph had bolded headers, passive tendencies, attachment style, predictability index. I wasn't a person to her. I was a project. And somewhere along the way, I think she decided I failed. That night, I met up with Riley. She brought 2 hot chocolates and a folded blanket. We sat in the back seat of her car, parked at the overlook near the lake. I handed her the printout. She read in silence, only pausing once to whisper, "Wow." Then she looked at me. Soft. Serious. "She's not letting you go," she said. I nodded. She doesn't have to want me to have me. Just wants control of the story. Riley didn't say anything for a moment. Then she opened her glove compartment and pulled out a little black notebook. Inside were screenshots, photos, printouts, all from the same account that posted our park photo. But Riley had gone further. She tracked the metadata. She's using a VPN, but some of these were uploaded with geotags intact, she explained. 2 of them came from your street. My skin prickled. You knew? I asked. Riley shrugged. I suspected, but I didn't want to feed it. That kind of person thrives on reaction. I looked at the page again. The captions. The timestamps. It wasn't random. It was scripted, like she was crafting a parallel narrative, her version of us, where I was the villain, and she was the wounded phoenix rising from my shadow. And people were eating it up. I searched her name on TikTok. Found a stitch someone made using her audio. Sometimes the most dangerous men are the ones who don't raise their voice. They just disappear and leave you questioning if you were ever real. There were thousands of likes, dozens of comments. Preach. I felt this in my bones. Men like that are terrifying. Riley leaned over, scrolled through the video, and pointed to one comment. Is this about the spreadsheet guy? Because that girl is a literal goddess. She's better off. It had 311 likes. And the account that posted it? A name I didn't recognize. But I clicked it anyway. Fake profile. But it followed exactly 2 people. My ex. And her mother. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just passive stalking. This was a campaign. Riley looked at me. You okay? I shook my head. No. This is deeper than I thought. Because here's the thing. I didn't care that she was talking about me. I cared that she was turning me into a symbol of everything she wanted people to hate. And worse, she was doing it with help. I spent the next few days in a strange headspace. Not angry, not scared, just calculated. There's something unsettling about realizing you're not in a breakup. You're in a narrative war. And the other person's been writing chapters behind your back. At work, I kept getting notifications from people I hadn't spoken to in months. Hey, just checking in. Saw a video and thought of you. Everything good. One person even asked if I was safe. Safe from what? I knew what was happening. She was planting landmines in people's minds, vague enough to be deniable, pointed enough to be effective. It wasn't defamation. It was implication. And it was working. Riley stayed steady through it. She didn't flinch, didn't post, didn't clap back. But I could feel it getting to her. The edge in her voice when she talked about her creative circles. The way she paused before uploading anything new. I don't want to seem performative, she said, but I also don't want to seem silent. Meanwhile, I was stuck between instincts. Part of me wanted to fight back, publicly, with receipts, with screenshots and timestamps. Another part whispered, that's exactly what she wants. If I engaged, she'd get content. If I ignored, she'd get control. One night, I opened my phone to draft a post. Something simple, clean, just the facts. There's a difference between moving on and building a mythology around your ex. But I stopped, because the minute I posted it, I'd be playing her game, where attention equals points and likes equal truth. I stared at the blinking cursor and thought, what's the actual win here? Reputation? Revenge? Or peace? But peace doesn't trend. I met up with Riley again, this time at her studio. She was working on a large canvas, abstract shapes in bold reds and blacks. The edges were messy, aggressive. I think I need to pull out of that panel next month, she said without looking up. They're not saying anything, but I can feel the shift. She meant the art conference. She was scheduled to speak on narrative integrity in digital spaces. The irony burned. I walked over and gently moved the brush from her hand. Let's try something else, I said. She looked at me, wary but open. What do you mean? I mean not fighting, not hiding, just showing up. I told her my idea. A joint project. Not a response, a reflection. A short film. A performance piece. Something we co-create. Not about her, not against her, but ours. Riley's face lit up. For the first time in weeks, I saw excitement, not fatigue. She nodded slowly. Yeah, that's better. Let's write our own story. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was anxious, but because I felt ready. Still, I couldn't shake one last thought. If she'd gone this far already, how far would she go once we stepped into the light? We called it Stillness Isn't Silence. A 6-minute short, part spoken word, part visual essay. No names, no faces, just our voices. Layered over shots of street corners, blank walls, messy studios, hands not quite touching. It wasn't an answer to anything. It was a presence. Riley posted it on her main account with no caption. Within an hour, it had 10,000 views. Within a day, 80,000. Comments flooded in. This feels like breathing underwater. Didn't expect to cry, but here we are. This is the kind of stillness that moves you. And then came her followers. At first, just confusion. Then, comparisons. Wait, is this a sub to her? Why does this feel like a mature version of her last video? No shade, but this hits harder than all her monologues combined. I didn't respond. Neither did Riley. We let the piece speak. For a moment, it felt like we'd won. Not in the petty way. In the quiet, sacred way. Like reclaiming your voice in a room that kept talking over you. Even people from my past reached out. Co-workers. Old college friends. Not to ask what happened, but to say they saw me. I always thought you had something deep going on under the quiet. Man, this felt true. Thanks for sharing it. Riley smiled more. She got a message from one of the panel organizers. We'd love to showcase the film. Let's talk. For the first time in months, there was lightness again. Like gravity had eased its grip. We even joked about it. I bet she's watching this with a wine glass and a furrowed brow, Riley said, half laughing. She probably hates that it's not about her. I smiled. But something tugged at me. That night, I couldn't help it. I checked her page. New post. A dimly lit photo of her, sitting on the floor, back against a wall. Caption. It's wild when people use your healing language to polish their guilt. No names. But the comments didn't need them. You said it first. They just copied the vibe. We know who it's about. Keep rising, queen. He always felt like a guest in your light. Then I saw it. A story. Just 5 seconds. Black screen. Text overlay. Time to tell the real story. My phone buzzed a second later. Riley. 1 line. She tagged me. I opened Instagram. She had posted a new reel. Muted at first. Then, her voice, slow, deliberate. They say stillness is peace. But I've learned it can also be manipulation. Images flashed. Candles, mirrors, a slow zoom on a painted canvas that looked eerily like Riley's latest work. I watched in silence. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I suddenly realized something terrifying. This wasn't over. She wasn't just reacting. She was building something. And we had just given her material. It took less than 24 hours for everything to shift. The reel she posted, the one with the slow voice and candlelight, It blew up. A popular commentary account stitched it, saying, "This is what emotional neglect actually looks like." He didn't yell. He just erased her. And suddenly, we were no longer two people with a quiet project. We were a case study. People started posting side-by-side comparisons. Her video next to stillness isn't silence, calling it appropriation. Someone even edited clips of Riley's voice over a black and white filter, captioned, "New aesthetic, same erasure." My inbox filled with strangers telling me I was weaponizing stillness, that I was rebranding abuse as mindfulness. One person wrote, "No wonder she couldn't breathe around you." I didn't sleep that night. Riley called around 3 a.m. She sounded exhausted. "They're tagging my students now," she said. Someone emailed the gallery I'm working with, asking if I condone emotional suppression. Her voice cracked at the end. Not from weakness, from rage. We didn't talk long. There was nothing to say. We'd been outmaneuvered. Because here's the truth. You can control your story, but you can't control who tells it louder. The next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. It was her mother. She didn't scream. She didn't accuse. She just said, "Whatever this is, whatever little performance you two are putting on, it's hurting her. She's not eating. She's spiraling. You know she's fragile." That word, fragile, hit me like a slap. Because that's how it always went. She'd build the fire, and I'd be the one blamed for the burn. I hung up without responding. But then I saw the message. My ex. No hello. No build-up. You think you're the calm one, but you create storms without ever raising your voice. That's the worst kind. I stared at the screen, then typed, "You built this. You framed it. You narrated it. You chose your audience. Now you're mad they're clapping." Then I deleted it. Because it didn't matter. She didn't want truth. She wanted the spotlight. And we gave it to her. Later that evening, Riley sent me a screenshot. A subreddit had picked up the story. Title: "When the chill guy is just a better gaslighter." Thread full of armchair psychologists. Analyzing me. Comparing voice tones. Quoting timestamps. And buried in the middle, one comment stood out. "You can tell he was always jealous of her creativity. Now he's leeching off her idol." It had a gold award. And a familiar username. Her sister. I stopped leaving the apartment. The outside world had turned abstract. A blurred loop of headlines, hashtags, and unsolicited hot takes. Every time I opened my phone, someone else had decided who I was. Riley pulled back too. Not from me, but from the spotlight. She canceled the panel. Removed her name from the film credits. Said it was for safety, but I knew what she meant. This wasn't just affecting us. It was damaging her. And I couldn't stop it. For a while, I told myself it would pass. That people would get bored, that the algorithm would move on. But that's the thing about digital myths. They're sticky. The more you deny them, the more real they seem. And the silence I'd once been proud of? It started to feel like complicity. One night, Riley came over. She looked tired. Makeup smudged. Hoodie zipped to her throat like armor. We sat on the floor, eating takeout in silence. Halfway through her noodles, she said, "Do you ever feel like you're trapped in someone else's version of you?" I didn't answer right away. Because the truth was, I did. I had spent so long trying to be stable, safe, reasonable, that I hadn't noticed when those things were weaponized against me. My calm became cold. My patience became passive. My quiet became erasure. And now? Now I was the villain in a story I never agreed to be part of. Riley touched my hand. "You didn't deserve this," she said. Her voice was so soft it broke me. I looked at her, really looked, and saw what this was costing her. Not just reputation, not just credibility, but safety, because she chose to care about me. And someone else decided that made her complicit. I stood up, walked to my bedroom, and pulled out the old shoebox. Inside were printed screenshots, comments, captions, videos, the burner account, the drive folder, the sisters' Reddit posts. All of it. I held it in my hands and thought, this could end it. If I published it, just one thread, just one drop of the real timeline, it would flip everything. People would see what was really happening. She'd lose control of the story. But at what cost? Would it vindicate me? Or just drag Riley deeper into the same pit? I sat on the bed for hours, shoebox beside me, waiting for an answer that never came. At 4 a.m., I texted Riley. "I don't know who I am in this anymore." Her reply came back instantly. "You're the same person who listened to me at the studio when no one else did. The same one who didn't speak just to be loud. You didn't become him just because she said you did." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then I whispered something I hadn't said out loud in months. I don't want to win. I just want it to stop. I didn't go nuclear. Not at first. No receipts thread. No revenge post. No passive-aggressive quotes. Just a message. Short. Direct. I sent it to her burner account. I see you. I have everything. Stop now. 10 minutes later, the account vanished. No reply. No apology. Just silence. But it wasn't over. Because she still had the stage, still had the following, the narrative, the sympathy. And the thing about silence is, people fill it with whatever suits their story. So I made a choice. Not to fight her, but to step through her shadow. Riley and I booked a small venue. Nothing dramatic, a library auditorium that seated 50. We invited people we knew personally. Friends, mentors, a few creatives from her circles. And we premiered a new piece. Not a rebuttal. A documentary. Called In the Absence of Permission. It wasn't about her. It was about narratives. How quietness is misunderstood. How presence is repackaged. How men who don't interrupt are often erased. And women who don't perform rage are called complicit. There were no accusations. No finger-pointing. Just us. Our story. Our truth. Our timeline. With receipts not as proof, but as context. At the end of the showing, we opened the floor. People didn't ask questions. They told their own stories. Of being mischaracterized. Of being rebranded by someone louder. Of learning the difference between peace and silence. When it ended, I stepped outside for air. That's when I saw her, leaning against a tree near the side exit. Alone, hoodie up, watching. I didn't approach, but I didn't flinch either. She walked toward me slowly. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it, she said. Her voice was flat. No fury, just fatigue. I met her eyes. You were never the villain in our story, but you made me one in yours. She shrugged. That's how it felt. No, I said. Calm. Clear. That's how you framed it. She looked away, jaw clenched. Then, you humiliated me. I shook my head. No, you humiliated yourself. I just stopped letting you talk over me. She stared at me. And for a second, just one, I saw something crack. Not regret. Not guilt. Just the quiet horror of someone realizing their control had slipped. She turned and walked away. That was the last time we spoke. 2 weeks later, her account went private. The burner page never came back. And her sister? She removed every post that mentioned me. Riley got re-invited to the panel. The library asked to license our piece for educational programs. We didn't post about it. We just lived. Quietly, but not invisibly. Life didn't go back to normal. It just recalibrated. The storm passed, but not without aftermath. Some people faded out of my life, quietly unfollowed, stopped texting. Others reappeared, not to apologize, but to observe. Like they needed time to believe the version of me that didn't match the villain arc they'd consumed. I let them. I stopped managing perception. Stopped over-explaining. Stopped trying to win a game I never agreed to play. Riley and I kept creating. Not for an audience, for ourselves. Sunday mornings became studio time. We'd sit on the floor, surrounded by half-finished canvases, cold coffee, and the kind of silence that feels like music. She never asked me to be louder. I never asked her to tone down. We just met where we were. One afternoon, she asked me something. Do you think she regrets it? I knew who she meant. I paused. I think she regrets losing control of the story. Not losing me. Riley nodded. Makes sense. Then, with a small smirk. Funny how boring you turned out to be. I laughed. A full, easy laugh. Because somewhere in the mess, in the gaslighting and deflection and digital firestorms, I'd stopped believing her words. I wasn't boring. I was stable. I was consistent. I was quiet, but not empty. And when the noise finally cleared, I was still standing. Still me. Her mother never called again. Her sister removed every Reddit thread, every passive-aggressive post. Eventually, she posted a video titled, Letting Go Isn't Losing. Soft lighting, vague metaphors, no direct shade. It flopped. Because once people saw truth, they stopped craving her edits of it. Sometimes I still see her name pop up. In old tagged photos, in comment sections, in half-familiar usernames. I don't engage. Not because I'm scared, but because silence, when chosen, not forced, is powerful. And I've learned the difference. So no, I didn't clap back. I didn't post receipts. I didn't burn the house down. I just left the room. And this time, I closed the door behind me. If you've made it this far, thank you. Not just for watching, but for staying. Because stories like this, they're not just about revenge. or reputation. They're about reclaiming the version of yourself that someone tried to edit out of existence. I used to think silence was weakness. Now I know silence can be a boundary. And sometimes the loudest thing you can do is not explain. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you've dated someone who told you that being calm meant being small. That stability was dull. That softness was a flaw. If that's ever been you, drop a comment. Tell me your version. You're boring. Your story that someone tried to rewrite. Because the more we speak, the more we take it back. And trust me, someone else out there needs to hear that they're not alone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who's tired of being misunderstood. Until next time, stay quiet if you want, but never, ever dim.